Welcome to today's session, everyone.
We are Pre-Med CC, a student-led organization established in the fall of 2021.
Our goal as an organization was to create an online program for pre-medical students at community colleges and universities, with the hope of guiding the next generation of diverse and inclusive physicians.
And while we advertise our organization as being for community college students, our events are open to anyone.
We realize that finding guidance and mentorship in a pre-med journey can be especially challenging for first-generation pre-med students,
people that lack the financial resources, or just those who do not know people in the medical field.
One of the best parts about our events is that they are virtual, so you can do it from the comfort of your own home.
We typically have events on Fridays from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and on Saturdays from 11 a.m. to 12:30 Pacific Standard Time.
If you aren't able to attend the event, all of our sessions are uploaded on our YouTube channel.
Many of our sessions will end up with a Q&A with the speakers.
Any questions that you have, you may put it in the Q&A session on Zoom, and our team members will read them and have them answer.
After you have attended our event, you can log into our website and complete the quiz, which will contain questions pertaining to our session today.
If you score 70% or higher on the quiz, you will be awarded a certificate to show that you attended our session today.
If you want to stay connected with the upcoming events or just want to tell your pre-med friends about the Pre-Med CC, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok as @PreMedCC.
Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here today. And today I have the pleasure of introducing Angela Acosta. Angela was born and raised in Southern California. She graduated from the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA in 2021 with a degree in neuroscience and a minor in Chicano, and Central American studies. She took a gap year before medical school where she worked as a medical scribe in sports medicine, led an advocacy committee for a UCLA-based community organization, and volunteered as a health coach at community health centers in Riverside County. Angela is currently a first-year medical student at the University of California, San Francisco School of Medicine, UCSF SOM. She is passionate about community health and hopes to be a leader in bridging the gaps in Latinx health. Angela, welcome, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you for that warm welcome. I'm so excited to be here and talk about something that used to be so stressful to me, and I'm happy to just give the tips and tricks that I've came across as I've been dealing with financial aid since being an undergrad. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Okay, so I included some of my contact information here in case anyone has any questions. I do a lot of mentorship through my Instagram, so feel free to DM me if you have any questions. So a little bit about me. So a lot of things that were mentioned about me before are things that I was gonna mention here, but some things that were mentioned. I'm a rising second year, so I just finished my first year at UCSF. I'm currently doing some research. I'm an MCAT tutor, trying to just stay busy for my last summer before, my last summer ever. I'm never gonna have a summer again. And so I'm also first gen. I'm the first in my family to attend college, the first in my family to go to medical school. I'm Latina. I'm the eldest daughter in a Mexican American family. So that comes with a lot of different roles and responsibilities. If you know, you know. And some of my hobbies are, I like to do film photography, and I also like to go hiking. So that's a lot of things I like to do outside of medicine to keep me centered and grounded. We can go ahead and jump in now to the presentation. So financial aid in undergrad. I'm not sure if people here are in undergrad or if they're like post undergrad. So I decided to start here. So in undergrad, your aid is broken down into semesters or quarters, and that is very similar to how med school runs as well. In undergrad, your financial aid package can consist of subsidized loans, so loans that don't accrue interest until after the repayment period, unsubsidized loans that start accruing interest once you take out the loan, federal grants, which are so awesome, scholarships, and work study. And as y'all may know, disbursements occur after tuition and fees are covered. So your entire financial aid is not what you're receiving to like your bank account. You're receiving only what's left after the tuition and other fees are paid for by your school. And no, I think that's it for this one. So now to kind of talk about financial aid in medical school. So when everything I know about financial aid relates to like my experience at UCSF. So I'm not sure if the things I talk about today are applicable to other medical schools, but it doesn't hurt to ask. So for financial aid, I had to apply for financial aid through 3 separate applications, which was not fun at the time, but it's nice now that I can live and have enough money to do things that I want and pay my rent. So I had to do FAFSA. I had to do an application for UCSF. And then there's a separate application called CSS Financial Aid Profile. And all of these pretty much ask the same questions that FAFSA typically asks. Some of them require, I believe the CSS Financial Aid Profile asks for like my parents' finances, but I'm sure there are ways to get out of that if you don't feel that you need to share that information. Financial aid in med school, there are no federal grants offered in graduate school. So the fund Pell grants that we would get in undergrad, we no longer qualify for those as graduate students. So most of your aid in graduate school will be in the form of scholarships or loans. And the types of loans that you may come across are like the Graduate Plus loan, Stafford loans, and a disadvantaged loan, which I didn't know about until I got to UCSF. But this is a loan that comes with a lower interest rate, so lower than the ones that are offered by the government. And the interest begins after the repayment period. So it's like a subsidized loan. This is definitely something that I didn't even know existed. So you should work with your schools and ask if this is an option for you. Another thing to look out for when you are given loans on your financial aid breakdown is to check if the loans are deferrable during residency. Residents don't make that much money, so you don't really want to pay these loans off until after residency, and you have like the financial stability to do so. Working with the financial aid counselor to adjust your aid budget. So I mentioned that I go to UCSF. San Francisco is a very expensive place to live in. And I needed to adjust my budget while I was here to account for the high cost of living. So typically, like the financial aid breakdown that you see here, it'll just be kind of like an average of the cost of living in that area. So it's not always accurate. And so adjusting your budget is something that you have the option to do. And so like at my school, I just like made an appointment with the financial aid counselor, and I asked like, my rent costs a lot more than like what the average was. And I'm wondering how I can adjust my budget to accommodate for that. So in that interaction, first I learned that there's a grant that UCSF offers for supporting students in paying their rent. So that was awesome. Wasn't going into that conversation thinking I was going to come out with the grant. And then secondly, my aid was also adjusted. So I got to take out, I believe more loans in order to cover more of the cost of my rent, and also just give me some extra money that I can use for things that are outside of my rent. And something that I didn't really think about when I was going into medical school was that the financial aid that you're given at the beginning of the academic year, it does not include a budget for the summertime. So that is something that I would recommend thinking about sooner than later, trying to maybe utilize or save some of the money that you have during the academic year to pay for any summer expenses. You can also apply for summer research positions that are paid, of course, paid internships. You can get a summer job. Those are all some options that you can utilize to pay for your living expenses and whatnot over the summer. I'm gonna pull up some of my notes because I know I'm forgetting some stuff. All right. So for work study, so this one is kind of hard because being in medical school and working a typical part-time job, I don't know how feasible that is. And I think like the main focus should be to toward your academics, right? So work study in medical school, I have a work study job, but I don't work a typical part-time job. I work maybe like 2 or 3 hours in a week. So it's really not going to pay for like really big financial costs like rent, things like that. Mostly it just pays like for me to eat lunch. So the importance of work study in medical school, I think, really comes when you start applying for like government assistance. So in the CalFresh application, one of the requirements for students to receive aid is for them to be eligible for work study. So that's just one reason why you may consider doing a work study job. I don't believe you have to actually use the work study to receive like CalFresh. You just need to qualify for it. And this is like one of the places where it's a little different between medical school and undergrad. In undergrad, I feel like it was a bit easier to manage a part-time job while being a student. And in medical school, it's just, it would be a lot harder. It's doable, but it would be a lot harder. So that's just something to consider as well when you're trying to figure out like where you want the money to come from to pay for your medical education. Oh, and let's see here. So this, I forgot to mention the Stafford loan. Both undergrads and graduate students qualify for the Stafford loans, but they have both a subsidized and unsubsidized loan. And unfortunately, the graduate students do not qualify for the subsidized loan, and you can only take out an unsubsidized Stafford loan. So budgeting to maximize your aid. So once you receive your disbursement, like I said before, your tuition is already covered, so you don't have to worry about like paying for your tuition afterward. But once that money hits your bank account, it's really up to you to allocate that money where it needs to go. So whether it's rent, utilities, personal expenses. And I also mentioned earlier that your aid will only cover the academic year. And this is similar to undergrad as well. The aid didn't cover summer expenses. So you have to figure out how you're going to pay for stuff over the summer. So just to kind of break down how I budget throughout the school year. So I receive aid every 4 months. And this is similar to like my undergrad experience. I received aid every quarter. So pretty much what I do is I divide the entire disbursement that I receive by 4 so that I can get a monthly budget. And from there, I create an Excel sheet to budget my living expenses, So I make sure to prioritize rent, my utilities, groceries, gas and transportation, and other personal expenses. And I budget this per month. So then once you figure out how much aid is going toward like your living costs, then you can subtract that value from your monthly budget that you found initially. So then whatever you have left can be used to pay for like school supplies, any traveling that you may do, entertainment, etc. But something that I would highly recommend is with this extra money, of course, you have to buy school supplies, and traveling is so important. I'm, like was mentioned earlier, I'm from the Inland Empire in Southern California, and I live in the Bay Area. So travel has become a huge expense for me because I'm traveling home at least like once every 3 months. So that's a lot of like what I've been budgeting some of my leftover money for. But also during the school year, I wanted to make sure that I was saving some of this money so that I could pay for my summer expenses. Okay. And how to save money during medical school. This slide is not just during medical school. You can do all these things now and save yourself some money. So please, this is what I want y'all to pay attention to. Apply for CalFresh or food assistance. I think for students, like the highest aid can be like $200 something per month, and that goes such a long way. And the financial aid office may offer workshops or like one-on-one meetings to support you through the application. These applications are a little complicated at times. They ask for a lot of documentation and ask you questions that you may not know how to answer. And luckily, like my financial aid office offered these workshops that I attended to like learn about how to get through this application efficiently. And they also provided me with all the like documentation that I would need from them to apply for CalFresh. But again, you can do this now without a financial aid counselor. You can go to the link here. This is for California. I'm not sure if there's any people that are outside of California that are attending today, but a lot of these things here are likely specific to California.
And I just wanted
another
to add,
thing.
I just wanted to add also in California, all the community colleges, CSUs, and UCs have CalFresh counselors on campus. So just ask your financial aid office if there's somebody that will help you with that application. I actually used to do that for a bit, and it is pretty complicated and it's not an easy thing to do. And so someone that's next to you. And so if you're at any of those campuses in California, it's available. I'm not sure anywhere else, but if you, and I know that CalFresh it's basically food stamps, but they changed it to CalFresh. So other states call them different things.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for adding that. I had no idea. CSUs and UCs are doing amazing work. So also, this is something you can do. You don't have to be a student to qualify for. You can apply for assistance on utilities. So these are all things I learned about once I moved to San Francisco. Unfortunately, I wish I would have known about it before. But for Wi-Fi, they have something called the Affordable Connectivity Program. And I believe this is a $50 discount on your Wi-Fi bill. And there are some requirements. So I believe if you qualify for CalFresh, then you would also qualify for the Affordable Connectivity Program. The application is attached here. And also to save on electricity. And I don't know if this is just in California or throughout the United States, but there's like CARE or FARA program. And these just offer reduced rates on electricity for the month. And I noticed that like my bill was like $100 before this program, and after it was maybe like $25, $30. So it's actually like a significant reduction in the rate. So I highly recommend applying, or at least checking if you qualify for this program. And then this was so helpful for me, the Apple student discounts on laptops and iPads. So when I came into med school, I wanted to have all my stuff fresh because I know I was going to be using it like every day. This is my job. So I needed to get a new iPad and I needed to get a new laptop. And Apple offers education pricing. And then on top of that, when you make a purchase and you show that you're a student, you get a gift card of up to $150. And I use that to buy my Apple Pencil for my iPad. So I got a free Apple Pencil. It was nice. And you get 20% off Apple Care and other things as well. And lastly, joining rewards programs for your favorite stores to earn savings and rewards. So this is something I also didn't do. It's like kind of like couponing, I guess. But for all the grocery stores that I go to, I have like the app and I can like download. I go to Safeway, so I download like all of their coupons and save them onto my app. And then when I type in my phone number at the store, all those coupons are saved onto like my account. So I get all of those discounts and because I save them all on my phone. And then also like when I type in my phone number, I'm earning points on every dollar that I'm spending at the grocery store. So it adds up. It offers just a little bit extra support. And also with the points, like I don't have to use it towards future purchases. I can also use it to get discounts on gas, which is awesome. And I would have never known about unless I downloaded the app. So download some apps for your favorite grocery stores. And then airlines, like I mentioned earlier, I've been doing a lot of flying to visit my family. So I've joined a rewards program for my favorite airline and I earn miles, which I haven't used quite yet. I should probably use them. All right, so kind of switching into another topic about financial aid in medical school. So when you are accepted into medical school, you may get into like your dream school or you may not. If you get into your dream school and you get a financial aid package that's not where you wanted it to be, it's okay. Because if you got into another school and their financial aid package is amazing, you can use that as leverage to adjust your financial aid package at your dream school. So all of this is happening before you commit to a medical school. So this is how it works. You can email or call the deans of admissions to ask for an increase in financial aid. And usually this aid will be in the form of scholarships. And so if you have received a great financial aid package from another medical school, you can use this in your negotiation as kind of like leverage. So when you're sending this request, what should it include? You should state why the school you're emailing or calling is your first choice. Important information about yourself. So like your ID number. And I decided to include some of the identities that I thought were important to share and provide context for why financial aid was like such a huge factor in my decision-making process. You'd also want to include the best financial aid package you have received. And that can just be like a number. It doesn't have to be like an attachment of like your financial aid breakdown, anything like that. And then most importantly, it should include your financial aid request. So you want to tell them exactly what you're looking for. Do you want them to match the offer from the other school? Or would you like them to add X amount of money to your aid to be in the same ballpark as the other school's offer? So here's a sample email to negotiate financial aid, and I also included a breakdown. So like first paragraph, you're just thanking the program for admission and expressing like why you really want to go there and your excitement about the program. And then for paragraph 2, you want to talk about why financial aid is an important factor for you in your decision-making process. Provide your other financial aid offer and provide your request. So same things from the last slide. Paragraph 3, This is where you can give some information about yourself and why you feel like aligned with the mission of the program that you're requesting financial aid from. And then lastly, you want to thank them for their time and provide the best way to contact you. And this is always, it's worth a shot. This doesn't work for everyone. It didn't work for me. I tried doing this and it didn't work for me. But I'm happy that I tried. And yeah, it doesn't hurt to try.
100% of people that don't do it fail. You don't get anything, right?
Exactly right. So why not just do it? The worst that can happen is a no. Yeah. Yes, shoot your shot at your dream schools, y'all. It might work. Okay, and then lastly, scholarships for medical students. I included just 4 scholarships that are available to medical students. Some of these scholarships, like the first one, National Health Service Corps scholarship, you receive the scholarship, but then you have to dedicate time to working in primary care and at a specific approved site. So these are just some things that you want to look out for when you're applying for scholarships. You want to make sure that you'll be able to meet the requirements that they're asking of you. The Hispanic Health Professional Student Scholarship. This one's open to DACA recipients, which I don't see very often. So I thought this was such a great scholarship. I wanted to include it here for those that may benefit from that. The National Medical Fellowships, they have like 20 plus scholarships available on their website that you can apply to. And then the Tylenol Future Care Scholarship. And there's just so much money out there, y'all. And I know like applying to scholarships is kind of a drag, but it really beats taking out loans and having to pay interest on them. So start early. When you first are accepted into medical school, start looking into these scholarships and start applying. All right. And that's it for my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
I have a question. What does one of those good financial packages look like?
Yeah, so a great financial package is a full ride. So that would be just like all scholarships from your university that are paying for your entire time of medical school. Other really good financial aid packages are in medical school is when like a majority of your financial aid is covered by scholarships and less by loans. So I think I got pretty lucky with my financial aid breakdown. A little bit over half of my financial aid is in scholarships. And then the rest of it is in the disadvantage loan that I brought up earlier. So it has a super low interest rate and it's not accruing interest while I'm in medical school. So I think that was probably the best I was gonna get. So I was really happy with that. But I think like any loan that has like a low interest rate and doesn't accrue interest until like after you graduate, you can't go wrong with that. You can't go wrong with that. Let's read some of these questions. I haven't looked at this yet. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention something that I utilize in between undergrad and medical school. So when you apply for this is super important. So I applied for the double AMC fee assistance program. I did this in my last year of undergrad because I was planning to. No, I did not. I did it in the summer before my summer of senior year of undergrad. And that's because I took the MCAT the summer before my senior year. So the fee assistance program will give you all of the double AMC materials for free if you qualify for the fee assistance program. And then once you apply to medical school, the fee assistance program will also pay for like the application cost of 20 schools. And that includes the secondary applications as well. So that it saved me so much money. I'm so glad that I qualified for that program. So again, this is one of those things, like, just apply for it. If you don't get it, you don't get it. But if you do, you save yourself so much money.
You also
And
get
the
reduced. You also get reduced fees for the MCAT too.
Yes, I forgot about that. It's been so long. But you do get the MCAT for, I think, half the price. I think it's usually like $300. I paid like $150.
Yeah, it comes out to about $3,700 all said and done.
Yeah, it's amazing.
We had the financial aid director from Stanford come and give a talk, and she said almost 50% of the people that would have qualified for the FAP never applied for it. And so when they would show up to school, so there's a lot of people that qualify for it and don't that don't apply, and you have to apply. So she was saying that I would like, when you would meet with them one-on-one, I would say, why didn't you apply to this? Like, oh, I didn't know that. It's like $3,700 is a lot of money for me, at least.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, when you're applying to medical school, the last thing you want to worry about is the finances of applying to medical school. So yeah, that program's amazing. Highly recommend applying for that. Let's see what other questions are here.
I have a question. If you know you may be taking a gap year or two, do you still fill out a FAFSA for the upcoming school year, or do they make you fill it out when at the medical school you get accepted?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the application cycle is a whole entire year. So I think applying for FAFSA begins in October. And if you're starting school, yeah, I would say, just to stay on the safe side, apply for FAFSA. Even if you're taking a gap year, because I took a gap year, and I still applied for FAFSA because within that same year, I was going to start medical school. So yeah, you can never get away from FAFSA, y'all. Just keep applying.
Thank you.
So the next question is like, for all the aids to like save money, like does it also apply for like all type of students who still like depend on their parents?
That's a good question. So I believe on all the applications that I applied for, I included my parents' financial information, because yeah, I don't know, I just feel like it'd benefit me in getting like more aid. But I don't believe you have to include your parents' finances, except for maybe FAFSA. I'm not sure. I don't have personal experience with that. I always include my parents' finances. So yeah, that's the best answer I can give for that one.
For if you're over 25 or 25, you don't have to. You're considered independent for undergraduate. Medical schools, I think, changed that to 26, I believe. So if you're independent, because if you include your parents, unless, if your parents are higher income, it's going to impact you. But if they're lower income, then it may help you too, because I think with like CalFresh and all those stuff, if more dependent goes up, then more aid is available, but it all depends on income.
Someone wants to know, did you also use up all of your financial aid? Because I am disqualified due to the fact that I maxed out at 554%, and I want to know if I'm able to take out loans or continue some kind of fund or loan so I can continue with my schooling.
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't know that you can max out loans. Maybe from like undergrad. I'm not sure. Also, I received a scholarship in undergrad, so I didn't have to take out loans in undergrad. But I believe that there are still like the graduate plus loan, like you can't apply for that until you're a graduate student. So that will be available to you. Um, and yeah, like your financial aid office at your school will talk to you directly about how to come up with the loan. So you may have to take out a loan that's outside of like the government, which will probably have a higher interest rate, but I think it's worth it to go to medical school. You'll be able to pay it off eventually. And yeah, I wouldn't let that deter you from trying to get into graduate school.
Yeah, so for the 550, sorry, the 550 questions. So for undergraduate, you're maxed out at 600%. So 600%, the government and the FAFSA Cal Grant can't give you anything more. For Cal Grant is only 4 years, but you could take out loans. I think there's a certain amount for subsidized ones, but you could take out unsubsidized loans as much as you want to finish your degree. And just you have to look at it this way too, is that you may be taking out a lot of debt. And I know that if you're a first generation person and you grew up like struggling, it may seem like a lot of money, but first year physicians at a residency, in California, and I don't know the rest of the country, but in California, you make at least, $250,000. Like that's the lowest ones that I've seen. Plus, the other thing is places like Kaiser and the big groups give you loan repayment. They give you 0% interest rate on housing. So there's a lot of programs that do that. So once you're done, there's a lot of opportunities. But once you have that little MD, also the other thing is most people don't know is that little MD next to your name is 150 points on your credit score. So people will give you money at that end of it. And I know that it's like, and I always ask this question when we bring in physicians to speak, ask them if any of them have starved or not be able to like pay rent, and we haven't found anyone to do that. And unemployment is so low for physicians that the Department of Labor doesn't keep that statistics. And most physicians that don't work is because they don't want to. But so taking out loans, and I know it's really stressful, but if you're exhausted all your financial aid and you need that extra year of support to finish your post-bac, then do it because it's worth it. And there's a lot of reasons not going to medicine, but money should not be one of them. And I know it's really stressful.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next questions from one of our attendee is, what was your GPA applying to medical school, and like how would you like recommend what kind of like type of GPA that you have to keep to be competitive enough for medical school?
Yeah. So for me, my GPA going into medical school or applying to medical school was a 3.7, and my MCAT was a 506. So, yeah, when I was applying to medical school, when I was looking at like the MSAR, trying to see if I fit well at any of these schools based on my average stats, my averages weren't really fitting with a lot of the schools I was applying to. And so that was a risk I was willing to take because I felt that I had a lot of more important things about me other than my stats. So I think that's my biggest piece of advice. Your GPA and your MCAT will get your foot in the door, and that's pretty much it. The rest of what gets you into medical school is how well you can sell yourself during an interview, and how well you can sell yourself in your secondary essays and all of your essays in your application. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I have to say about GPA and MCAT is don't stress too much about it. Think about it as you getting your foot into the door, but more importantly, thinking about how the activities you're participating in are telling a story about who you are and why you want to become a physician.
Someone wants to know, I'm about to be a pre-nursing undergrad in the fall, and I wanted to ask if after my 4 years in my undergrad school, I should apply to medical school.
Yeah. So that is a hard question to answer. I would recommend only applying to medical school when you feel ready to apply because it is expensive and it takes a whole entire year to apply to medical school. So if you wanted to apply to medical school right after you graduate, it would take a lot of planning ahead. You need to plan ahead to take your MCAT, plan ahead in the activities you participate in. I know like when I was in my first year of undergrad, like I didn't participate in any activities because I was first gen. I was really just trying to figure out how to study, be a college student in my first year. So I didn't get involved in any activities. So those are some things you want to think about. You would want to have like your resume, your application perfected by the time you graduate, which is not always feasible. And yeah, so that's kind of like why I waited a year, or like after I graduated, I waited to apply. Because I don't know if I could have like applied to medical school while in college. I just felt like that was a lot for me to put on my plate. But if you plan ahead and that's what you know you want to do, you definitely can pull that off.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah,
Angela.
and also we had a nurse who came and gave a talk about this. What she's now an orthopedic resident. And so watch her talk too, because she talks a lot about like the challenges going from that. So
The next question is, can you talk about some of the scholarships you receive and what do you do to obtain them?
Yeah. So I received a scholarship in undergrad that paid for all my 4 years of attending there. And I'm trying to remember if I had to apply or not. I feel like I didn't have to apply. I think it was more based on like my application into like the UC programs. So they looked at like my personal statement, my financial need, and with that information, they decided to give me the scholarship maybe like 2 or 3 months into my undergrad experience. So didn't have to do much for that one. I just had to apply to a UC and they pretty much decided from there. And then additionally, the scholarship that I received for medical school was also based on things that I wrote about in my application and my financial need. So again, that scholarship was just added to my financial aid package without me having to technically apply for it. But I am in the process right now of applying to scholarships to continue like funding my medical education, trying to reduce the amount of loans I have to take out. And pretty much I'm just writing like personal statements, getting letters of recommendation, and that's pretty much it. I feel like most of the scholarships are just like answering some questions. And then yeah, and just filling out these applications and seeing if you get it or not. A lot of people are applying for them. So you're not always going to get them, but like we mentioned earlier, you never know unless you try. So just keep applying and you never know what will come your way.
Someone had a question. Do you also need to have good credit too? Maybe this is for the loans.
I don't know. I don't know if they run my credit for the loans. That's a really good question. I'm not sure about that one. I kind of feel like they don't.
they run a credit. Oh, sorry, they run a credit. It's not like the same thing as buying a house. They just want to make sure that you don't have liens and defaults and you are not an irresponsible person. They do run a credit check when you apply to medical school, and when you get accepted to a medical school, they do a background check, and credit is one of them. So if you are not like a delinquent or somebody that decided to embezzle money, that's another one that they could that could disqualify you as well. But you don't need to have an 870 score I think, I mean, I know like one person who had a 400 and was able to get it. They were just really like poor. They just didn't make any, they didn't have a lot of credit card debt. That was another thing. So, yeah, so basically that's, but they do run a credit check, but it's not like the same as buying a house. So you're okay as long as you haven't like, you know, done anything bad.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Thank you for explaining that.
So the next questions is, as a way besides scholarships and loans, what do you think of like the Army and Navy about like covering the cost for medical school?
Yeah, I mean, if that's something that you're willing to dedicate your time to, then go for it. It will make your experience in medical school a lot easier because you don't have to worry about finances. But again, like the other scholarships that I mentioned, some of them have requirements of like work that you have to do after you graduate to like kind of pay back that scholarship. Those are just things that you want to consider. Like, do you really want to do that? Do you want to go into a certain specialty to get this scholarship? Do you want to maybe have to move, like in the Army or Navy, you may have to move to places you don't really want to move to. Those are just some things to consider when you're thinking about different ways to pay for medical school.
Someone else wants to know if you could explain how the scholarship money is used or if you receive the money. And I have been on the fence about applying as a student, about to apply to undergrad because I'm confused on what happens with the money.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So in my experience, the scholarship gets like incorporated into like my financial aid breakdown. So when I received like the scholarship in undergrad, I had loans that I was taking out initially when I went into undergrad. And once I received that scholarship, the loans were removed and the scholarship was added to my financial aid budget. So the way you get the scholarships, the ones that I've received have been from my school. So they're directly incorporated into my financial aid package and they come to me after like tuition and fees are paid for. So whatever's left of that is in my disbursement. I'm not sure if that's the same for like scholarships that come from like outside organizations. I believe though that they would still go through your school. And that'd probably be like the easiest way anyway, so you can get like those loans taken off and replaced with your scholarship.
So the next question is like, if someone is planning to apply for medical school in 2024, so when would they apply for FAFSA, and would you mind to explain the overall process of apply to medical school?
Yeah. So if you're thinking of applying in 2024, you would matriculate in 2025. And that would probably be like in August of 2025. And that's before the next FAFSA opens. So you'd want to apply for FAFSA in 2024 to receive aid in before October 2025. Kind of complicated. And then to talk about my overall journey to medical school. So I guess it starts the summer after my junior year of undergrad. I took the MCAT then, and that was just like a decision I decided to make based on like, I tried studying for the MCAT during like as being like a student at UCLA and it just wasn't working out. I didn't have enough time. I had too many responsibilities outside my academics, so it just wasn't feasible for me to study for the MCAT. So I decided to take a summer off and just study for the MCAT. So I had no outside responsibilities other than studying for the MCAT, which was, I studied for about 3 or 4-ish months. So I did that the summer before senior year. I did my senior year at UCLA. I graduated in June, and so like my last quarter at UCLA, I was starting to like write up my personal statements. So I guess kind of to give like a timeline, I applied in June and I started working on my application probably like in January. I really started pushing it like in March, April, like really writing my personal statements, getting my activities written out, and getting like my letters of recommendation, all that. So by the time it came June-ish, July, I graduated in June and I submitted my application in late June, early July. And then from there, I received secondaries for like maybe 3-4 months. And so I received secondaries and sent them back towards like the later end of those like 3 or 4 months, maybe like into September, October. I was getting interview invites already. Most of my interviews were from like October to December. And so I did all those interviews, and then you pretty much have to wait like about, I would say on average, like a month to get a decision back about whether you were accepted or not. And yeah, so UCSF was actually like the last school that interviewed me. I interviewed in January. So like the following year, I interviewed at UCSF in like January 8th. And then I was accepted to UCSF in March. And I had to decide where I wanted to go to med school by May. So the application process literally will take the entire year. Don't feel discouraged. You have literally until the very last minute to get into a medical school. And yeah, so I think the application opens in May. So I applied a little bit late, but I didn't feel that it affected me in any way or like my application cycle. So that's pretty much a rundown of my journey to applying to medical school.
Someone else wants to know regarding the credit score for loans. When is a good time to start building it as an undergrad?
Ooh, yeah. I think I started as early as I could. So once I got into college, I got a credit card and I just started building my credit with that. I would like make small purchases and pay it off. Started making bigger purchases and giving more money in the payments. I heard that helps improve your credit. So that's what I started doing. So yeah, I started that in undergrad. I wanted to make sure I had good credit for various reasons. If you like want to buy a car, want to buy a house, you need to have good credit. So yeah, I think when you feel that you can be financially responsible, that's when you should get a credit card.
I would just add that you did the absolute right way. Building credit is not to go max out your credit card and then pay it off. That's like the worst way you could do it, because your credit score is one of the major factors of your credit score is debt to credit ratio. And so if you get a credit card for $500 and you max it out at $500, your credit score will drop as fast as jumping off a building, because that means your debt ratio is really low. But if you have a $500 credit and you put a $10 purchase on it and you pay it off the next month, that means that you have a very low ratio and then you pay it back really fast. So just make sure that if you are doing this, is what Angela did, is to make sure that you do it, be smart about it. Building credit is very tricky. And to be honest with you, not a lot of people know how these credit, because there's 3 different companies and they all have like way different things. And so, and somebody said that some public libraries have financial advisors. That is true. But also that is true. And then also your financial aid office would have people that could help you with this. But ultimately, like, do what Angela did.
Yeah, and then also make sure to look at the interest rates on the credit cards. Like a lot of the times, like I got pulled in like this. They were like, oh, like for the first year, it's like 0 interest. and that's amazing. But then if you don't pay off the amount of money that's on there before that like zero interest period ends, then you're going to start accruing interest, and usually the interest rate is super high. So like you're paying so much in interest, and you just like kind of blindsided because you thought it was like 0% interest, which it was, but you should pay it off before the period of zero interest ends.
Yeah, usually, I mean, if you're just getting your first credit card, your interest rate is going to be high. It could be as high as 21%. But if you pay it off at the end of the month, you're not really paying interest on it. And so that's why like the whole idea of like, don't get a credit card and let it rip, actually get it, and then, always spend the amount of money that you have. Obviously, there's certain things that you need to buy, emergencies, things like that. But the problem is most people use credit card as I'm gonna go put it there, don't think about it, which is like a really bad way to do it. Do what Angela did.
Okay, so we touched a little bit of how medical school may look at your background or your credit score. So what if you were arrested but was never convicted? Is there like a chance to still continue in the career, or how would it affect?
That's a good question. So yeah, they do run a background check on you before you apply, or before you can, I'm trying to think. No, so I had to commit to a school before the background check was completed, I believe. And so yeah, I'm not sure. That's a really good question. Like I don't know like what the background check entails completely. I didn't know my credit score was on there, so I learned that today. I know that they can likely see if you were convicted of a crime, but I don't know if they can see if you were arrested for XYZ reasons.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. They can see if you were arrested, so don't get arrested, y'all.
Yeah, if you get arrested, but they have to convict you, and so it doesn't show up on your record. Now, I don't know. I mean, if you have an FBI check, that does show up, but I don't think they do an FBI check on them, and I'm not sure. But if you're arrested and not convicted, you're okay.
I have the next question. Angela, what kind of specialty do you want to do, or do you know yet?
Yeah. No, I love that question. So, I'm only like finishing my first year. I'm trying to stay open-minded, but I feel very passionately about cardiology. I just really like the possibilities of like working with patients one-on-one, but also I could become an interventional cardiologist where I can do some surgeries here and there. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I haven't done any rotations. I don't know if I like surgery or not yet. I know that I do enjoy like the outpatient setting of cardiology. And so I think that's why like one of the main reasons why I'm so interested in cardiology. And also, yeah, when we had our cardiology block about the heart, I was just so happy to be learning, and I hadn't felt that way in a very long time. So I don't know, I feel a little bit drawn to cardiology.
So I have a question. So as also pre-med students, I was advised during like the process of applying to like apply to at least 40 medical school for like the best chance. So I wonder how many school do you apply to, and how much did it cost you just to go to like the interview, hotel, and all of the expenses during that process?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So I had the fee assistance program, and I knew I wanted to stay in California or near California. So I applied pretty much only to California schools. I applied both MD and DO. DO, they don't have a fee assistance program, but they do have a separate application that will help with the costs of applying to DO medical schools. I think I applied to 5 DO schools, and I applied to 20 or 21 medical schools, and I didn't have to pay for any of those because of the fee assistance programs. So if you get FAP and you want to apply for more than 20 schools, then you would have to start paying for applying to medical school. And I am not even sure about how much it costs to apply to each school. It was just out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. And what was the second part of that question?
Like how much it costs you for like hotel expenses to stay for the interviews?
Yeah, so another thing, luckily I applied to medical school after the pandemic had occurred. So a lot of almost like literally all my interviews were through Zoom, and I didn't have to pay anything to like attend my interviews. I'm hoping that this is something that they continue to do because it is way more accessible for low-income students to do these interviews through Zoom. But I do believe I've heard some students saying that they've gotten interviews in person this cycle. So it's really up in the air right now, but I do think that some schools are still sticking with like the online stuff. So yeah, didn't cost me anything to interview because I did it from home.
Someone wants to know what undergrad science class was the most difficult. Do you remember?
Yeah, this is kind of funny because I really did not like physics in undergrad, and I ended up becoming a physics tutor in undergrad like later in the years, and then right now I'm an MCAT tutor for the physics section of the MCAT. So I hated physics, but it's grown on me a little bit and now I love it. So it's a happy ending for that story.
So, in between of your applications for medical school, when did you apply for FAFSA and of the other financial aid you had to apply, like the CSS and then I think the disadvantage one? So when and how is you apply for it?
Yeah. Finding the time. That is a really good question. I felt like at this time when I was applying for all these financial aid applications, that was all I was doing for a little while. But so FAFSA I completed in October. Let's see. So yeah, in October during my application cycle, I was just like writing secondaries. I wasn't really like interviewing yet. I was doing some minor interview prep, but that was pretty much all I was doing in terms of like my medical school application. So it wasn't too hard to find time to complete the FAFSA application. And then applying for like UCSF financial aid and the CSS profile. I think the CSS profile came after I committed to UCSF. So once you commit to a med school, your time is going to be spent doing a lot of applications for financial aid, going to the doctor's office to get a lot of random like vaccinations that you need that are required. And so yeah, that application I had to do like after I committed. So I was already doing a bunch of other stuff and focused on UCSF only. So it was a lot easier. But when in between all that, when you get accepted to a medical school, you need to submit like your financial information or at least like some financial information so that they can give you like an estimate of your financial aid breakdown. So yeah, once you're done with the interviews and you get accepted, such a happy moment, but then you have to start doing a bunch of applications to make sure that you will get financial aid and whether your financial aid package will be good or not. So yeah, a lot of my time was spent applying for financial aid, but it was super important to me. Like I wanted to make sure I was going to get like the best offers. So I took my time with those applications and found time to dedicate to that.
I have a question. If you have any insight on this, because you're not like you're in your second year. How much is a medical school loan per month? Like if someone
I don't know. So I think like for my first year, I took out maybe like 16 or 20K in loans for just my first year. And again, this loan is not accruing interest until after I graduate, and I don't have to pay it off until after I graduate. So I'm not really sure. They do actually say though, like if I were to go check on my loan page, they'll say how much I'll have to pay per month once that repayment period starts. But again, out of sight, out of mind. I don't want to worry about that right now.
So the next question is, do you feel like attending UCLA helped you with your medical school?
Um, no, I don't think there was anything in particular about UCLA that helped me get into medical school. I think that like maybe like the mentors that I found at UCLA were helpful in like helping me believe in myself that I can go to medical school and that it was possible for people that look like me to go to medical school. Um, I know that some people also say that like where you went to undergrad has some like leeway in like whether you get into medical school or not. I'm not sure how true that is. Maybe UCLA helped me in that way. But other than that, I feel like everything else was pretty like standard. I had to take the same classes that everyone else has to take to get into med school. But yeah, maybe like the people in the community that I found at UCLA was helpful for me personally. To feel that I could get into medical school and inspired me to apply to medical school, get me motivated.
Someone wants to know, how long was your education path so far?
So I did, in high school, I did some community college classes. So I almost have an associate's degree, not quite. That's something I recommend to do over AP classes. I don't think we have any high schoolers here, but like if you can do community college classes instead of AP classes, you'll get so much more bang for your time. Because I was able to transfer a ton of my credits from my like my JC, so my junior college, to UCLA. So there was a ton of like general education classes that I didn't have to take at UCLA that opened up time for me to take electives or other courses that I was more interested in. So yeah, in high school I did community college, so I guess that's where I start, maybe like 2 years of community college and then 4 years of undergrad. I took a gap year where I wasn't a student. So I don't even think it was like a whole year, actually. It was maybe from like June to August where I wasn't a student. So yeah, it was a year and a month. And now I'm going to be in medical school for 4 years. I already did 1 year. I have 3 more years to go. And then residency, I'm anticipating maybe 3 years of internal medicine residency, 2 years of cardiology fellowship, and a year or 2 of interventional cardiology if that's what I want to pursue. Long time, but it's worth it.
So the next question is, do medical school care about your entire GPA and science GPA, or just focus on your like science GPA only, and how would they look at it?
Yeah, I think medical schools look at both, especially because like on the double AMC application, so like the application that you submit to medical schools, you like input all your classes and it'll generate your GPA, your total GPA for you, and it'll also generate like your science GPA for you as well. So when you submit the application, it has your total GPA and your science GPA. So they do look at them separately. And yeah, I feel like maybe the science GPA is a little bit more important because you're going into a field of like that's highly based in science. But I'm not really sure. That's a really good question.
Another question that I have is, how much does it cost you to prepare for the MCAT?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I wish I didn't spend any money on the MCAT materials. So I had the fee assistance program that gave me like all the double AMC material for free. And I think I would have been better off studying just with the double AMC material. At the time that I was studying for the MCAT though, there was a lot of things that they didn't have that they have now. So like they have a lot more question banks now. I think maybe 2 full-length exams that weren't available to me when I was taking the MCAT. So that's why I say like right now, like with what they have to offer, with FAP, I'd rather just use the double AMC material. But for me, I ended up paying for UWorld Question Bank, which I believe was about $150 or more for I think 9-month access, something like that. I paid for that. And then I also paid for Blueprint full-length exams. I'm not recalling exactly the exact amount, but it was probably over $100 as well. And I got like five or six full-length exams from them. And that's pretty much all that and I had to buy like the subject review books, which are also like $150-ish. I had to pay for the MCAT, which was also like $150-ish for me because of the fee assistance program. But if you don't have that, it's about $300. So yeah, studying for the MCAT is actually really expensive, and something maybe you should plan ahead for. I know that there's like a lot of like libraries that have like the subject review books for free. I have a document on my Instagram page with a bunch of free material that I found on the internet, that you all can like look through and see if it's useful for you. And yeah, there's a lot of free material. I would stray away from buying things unless you feel like you really, really have to. But if you have to buy anything, buy the double AMC material. It is the closest thing to the actual MCAT, and it'll be so helpful for you.
Yeah, most libraries do have the MCAT book. College campuses don't have them, and if they do, they're always checked out college bookstores, but your city library has them. And the other cool thing is you could look at it ahead of time and reserve it. So it's cheap and it's free. So
Yeah, my question is, so far, has the iPad been useful, helpful? I'm thinking of getting one.
Yes. No, yeah, I definitely am so happy that I got an iPad. And like, I think you could probably go with like a bare minimum iPad. Like, honestly, you don't have to get like the Pro Max. I don't know how like much more useful that would be. I think I got like the cheapest iPad, and it's been just super helpful to take my notes on here. Like I can literally like copy paste pictures from my PowerPoint right into my notes, which is super helpful because I used to have to like draw everything out on like a piece of paper, and it would just take way too much time. I can like put video links and clips into my notes if I want. And yeah, like honestly, my whole medical school life is on my iPad. I use Canva for like all the stuff I have to do in med school. Like in LMSA, I have to make flyers all the time. I do that on my iPad. It's a lot of fun. I feel like I have my life together with an iPad. I think it's definitely worth the purchase.
yeah, no, I love my iPad. I take all my notes and I don't carry any notebooks or anything. I took differential equation and linear algebra, and some of the problems were like 30 pages long, and so you could just writing. So I love my iPad.
Yeah.
I take it to bed with me.
iPad.
I take it to bed with me.
Yeah, and then also like I get my textbooks on there sometimes. Like you don't really get textbooks in med school, but I can just download them onto my iPad, read them there. Like you don't have to carry around stuff. My backpack is so light now. Like I don't have a turtle backpack or anything. Like everything fits in there really nicely. Highly recommend.
Need to step it up because I'm still using the yellow pad.
Oh no.
Yeah, but the thing is, Veronica, you're OG. Yeah, no, I take my iPad everywhere.
Yeah, it's worth the purchase for sure.
So my next question is in regard for the USMLE, because I know as you're approaching your second years, how do you feel about it and how you prepare for it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And like for me, I like initially came into UCSF not knowing that UCSF takes their step 1 and step 2 after clinical rotations, which is different than most schools. So I initially came into medical school thinking that I was going to take step 1 before starting clinical rotations. So that would mean I have to start like studying now. But I actually haven't really been studying for step 1 exactly. I feel that, yeah, we get dedicated time to study for step. So I feel like a lot of people that I've talked to said that it's like doable just to study for step in the dedicated time that we're given, which is like 4 months. So at UCSF, I would take step 1 and step 2 in those 4 months. And apparently it's like easier to study for like step 1, or it's easier for step 2 because you're already doing clinical rotations. So you're learning pretty much everything you need to learn for step 2 during your clinical rotations. I think maybe just like studying for step 1, you're gonna have to go back and get to like the really nitty-gritty of things to like do well on step 1. But yeah, right now, all I'm pretty much using is this year. I have first aid. That's all I've really been using. I watched some Boards and Beyond videos, but usually it's just first aid. Like if I'm not getting something like in class and I'm like, okay, well, how much of this do I actually have to know? I'll just go to like first aid and see what's in there. And that's pretty much like the extent of my step studying to this point. But um, it's definitely something that I should start thinking about, and I will. As I get into clinical rotations. I start that in beginning of next year.
So another question I have is, as a pre-med student, we have to go through, the shadowing, the volunteerings, and the research. So how many hours do you dedicate for that, and how it like help you with medical school?
Yeah. So I don't know in terms of hours. I don't remember the hours, but I just like remember that I wanted to be well-rounded. So I was involved in like things that I could consider like clinical experiences where I would interact with patients directly. And I honestly didn't really have as much clinical experience that most people probably think they need to have. Um, I It was kind of hard to come by. It's hard to come by like volunteer experiences as like an undergrad um that don't require you have like a certification in something to work with patients. Um so yeah, I would just find any way pretty much that I can interact with patients and call that like my clinical experience. Um, a lot more of what I had on my application was like extracurricular activities that I was involved in. Um, and like I mentioned earlier, like I tried to really paint a picture of why I wanted to be a physician through the activities that I participated in. So I did a lot of like community health work, a lot of advocacy, working with patients from underrepresented or underserved backgrounds, low income, a lot of Latino community, because those are things that were that were my mission to becoming a doctor. So it just like it was easy for me to talk about in my application because it really just resonated with my mission so well. It was really easy to talk about. So, and then what else? Hobbies, they come up too on your application. So I would make sure to include those because it helps you stand out a little bit, sets you apart from everyone else. And then also like I was involved in like some creative projects, and those were like the things that came up the most in my interviews. Like everyone was just really interested in learning about it. So if you have like a creative side, and I would recommend incorporating that into one of the activities that you're really passionate about, because it will come up, and I felt like it made me stand out because it came up so often. Yeah, I'm trying
What
to
is your creative side?
Oh, yeah, my creative side. So the thing that came up a ton was in my senior year, I created a podcast where I had like experts from like UCLA come in and talk about different topics related to like racial and health disparities in the United States, but it ended up being a lot about like particularly in Los Angeles. So yeah, I talked a lot about how like the whole podcasting works, and like having to come up with like a script, finding people to become a part of the podcast, and then I also do like a lot of social media stuff, so that was something that I included. I do mentorship through social media. I vlog some of my life as a medical student. I post that on my Instagram and YouTube sometimes. And those are all things that I would just recommend you put on your application, because they make you, I mean, I don't think a lot of people do those kind of things, so it kind of makes you stand out a little bit.
Someone wants to know how many hours a day do you set aside for studying?
Most of my time is to studying. I feel like during the academic year, it's like really dependent on the day. Some days I have a lot of lectures, so the rest of my day, most of that time is going towards studying. Other days I don't have lectures, and I have just like maybe like a clinical thing for like 1 or 2 hours. And then on those days I can dedicate less time to studying. Like I'll dedicate the same amount of time to studying, but then I'll have some extra time to do things that I want to do outside of studying, like going for a hike or working on other responsibilities. Like I have extracurriculars that I'm involved in medical school that I also have to set time for. So I think like if I'm thinking of an average on a daily basis, probably like maybe close to like 7 to 9 hours, or yeah, 7 to 9 to be on like the lower side, maybe.
So yeah, being a medical student, whoever asked that question, being a medical student, it's her job. So it is a job. It's not like, you know, and it's not Instagram. So that way.
Yeah, no, and that's like kind of comes back to the point of like having a job in undergrad versus medical school. Like in undergrad, you're like a part-time student. You're actually a part-time student. So you have like your other part-time to do like a job. But in medical school, like I am a full-time student. I have lectures almost every day. I have stuff to do every single day for medical school. And then anytime that I'm not doing stuff required by my school, I have to dedicate that to studying. Yeah. And I don't have time for a job. My job is barely a job. I don't consider 2 or 3 hours a week a job.
Your job right now is being a medical student.
Yeah, that's my main job, but I'm not getting paid very well for it right now.
Well, technically you are, because you're investing in your future. So
Yeah.
technically it's a deferred, what is it? Deferred payment.
Yeah. No, I have to keep reminding myself of that, because it gets hard and it feels like there's not enough like gratitude coming from it, but it'll pay off. I always have to remind myself of that.
So another question I have is in regard for like the grading system, because I know some medical school we have like the letter grade and then some is just pass or fail. So I just wondering what's your thoughts on like both of the system?
Yeah. So I was looking for like a pass fail curriculum when I was going into like applying to medical school. And that's because like I felt like from what students were telling me that it just like establishes an environment where you don't feel like you're in competition with your classmates. And that's something that can happen when you are ranked among your classmates. And that would be like the other option of like not a pass fail curriculum. You get like letter grades, you get like a GPA similar to like in high school. So I really like being at UCSF because it is a pass fail curriculum. there has been times where I have failed, and it ended up working out for me. Like, they want me to succeed. I don't feel like I was behind because I didn't pass an exam or something like that. So I feel like it just really helps take a lot of the stress and pressure off of being a medical student. Like, you don't have to be perfect, and you have time to like fix your mistakes. I feel like I have a lot of leeway in the pass fail curriculum. And then also, I feel like I never feel like I'm in competition with my classmates. They're always so willing to offer their resources and talk about how they're studying or what's working for them, what's not. And I'm not sure if I'd be able to find that at like another medical school where like everyone was competing for like the first spot. Which makes sense, right? Like, you're applying to residency, you want that first spot, you want to be like the best. So I understand where the competition comes from, but I really like being in a pass fail curriculum because I don't feel like I'm in competition. It's a very collaborative environment that's established with that, and it takes a lot of pressure off.
Anyone have any other questions? And all right, then forever it was. What is that thing in the weddings they do? Anyways, so if nobody has any other questions, we're gonna let Angela go to study because, or actually, she's on summer break, so get to do something fun.
Yes, been utilizing my summer to do things that I can't do during the school year. It was really nice to be here. Such a pleasure to talk to you all and answer all your questions. And yeah, I hope you all get into medical school and reach all your dreams. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I'm always willing to answer any questions y'all have.